Hey dreamers, I hope you've had a nice increase in your portfolio recently. I feel like my portfolio has been seriously winning lately. I'm up almost $100,000 since a month ago when I last reviewed my portfolio with you. So this time, I'll show you that 100K increase, how I'm mitigating the drop in the AT&T yield on my total dividend income, which stocks I've been selling and buying, and at the end, I'll tell you the reason why I go through the trouble to even show you all of this. Okay, so let's start with some of the things that I've recently sold. And these I've actually sold and closed out the entire position. So we have Clorox, Kimberly-Clark, Stryker, ED, PGX, EVV, and EVN. These last two are bond funds, and I really want to stay away from bonds right now. Now, you'll notice that some of these I really didn't have that big of positions. I mean, 5 shares, 2 shares, 5 shares. Now, guys, sometimes I've gone years without touching or tweaking my portfolio, but you've just happened to hit me at a time where I'm doing a lot of optimization and a lot of tweaking. Part of that is because the rapidly changing conditions in the market. Part of that is because I think we're going to be hitting a stretch of inflation, and I want to be prepared for that. Part of that is just me starting to shift gears into an income generating strategy from a more growth strategy. And so these are just some of the recent ones that I've sold. In terms of what I've bought, I purchased more AQN, 638 shares, more BCE, more BTI, 278 shares, MFC, which is new, Altria, 208 shares, Microsoft, some more O, and some more VC. Now, this is just the recent round of buying and selling that I've done. You can see additional optimizations that I've made in the last couple of months in my level up video. Okay, so now let's move on to the portfolio. So starting with my biggest position, I still have MO in the top position. Now I've got 3,382 shares for a value of 178,285. You can see the yield here, pretty high, 689. And my estimated annual income is $12,283. Now I've also included here the value that was in my last portfolio update. So on the video from Feb 25, the total value of Altria stock I had was 164. So you can see it went up $13,884. Now part of that is I've purchased more stock, but you can kind of see here what has been up and what has been down. So moving on, next one is BCE. I've now got 2,417 shares, total value of 135,698. It's got a 5.18 yield right now, and that's an increase of almost $17,000. AbbVie, number 3 on my list, healthcare company, 513 shares, $83,540, a yield of 3.48, and that's gone up $8,172. Now, I haven't really bought more AbbVie, so that one just simply increased in value. Moving on to Chevron, CVX, I have 479 shares, 78,783. It's a yield of 3.49 right now, and that has gone up all by itself because the price of oil is just astronomical right now. Okay, moving on to O. I've got over 1,000 shares, 1,040, 73,758, 4.28 yield. This is my favorite REIT. And that increased almost $7,000, partly because I did buy additional shares. Next, we have Pfizer, PFE. I have 1,384 shares, a total value of $71,404, 3.09 yield, and that's gone up about $14.25. Philip Morris is the next one, 728 shares, $70,455. 5.32 yield, and that one has gone way down. Now, I haven't sold any of this, but this is just a market reaction to some unfavorable news for PM. Okay, moving on to IBM. IBM, I have 539 shares, $70,222, a 5.05% yield, and that's gone up almost $5,000. So here's AT&T, and the big change here is this yield right here. So the yield has been between 8 and 9%, and now you can see it's 4.7. So that yield has changed, because of the spinoff of Warner Media that's about to happen, and the announcement basically that they were going to cut the dividend. So this has been part of my issue because it used to represent a much bigger part of my annual income, and now it only is kicking off $3,244 a year. So part of the reason why I've made recent other tweaks is to try to make up that annual dividend income in other ways, just by tweaking here and there. So right now I've got 2,878 shares, $69,000 worth. It has increased in value, $1,353, but this is the one that, made the biggest dent. And I'm definitely not touching this until after that event happens. This is probably as good a time as any to mention that one of the reasons why you want to select dividend stocks that are dividend kings, dividend aristocrats, dividend contenders, these are companies that have consistently paid dividends and also have consistently grown their dividends for 10, 20, 25, and in the case of dividend kings, over 50 years. So you want to build a portfolio that's filled with great companies with a long history of dividend payouts, because you don't want to have a whole bunch of things like this, where the dividends are being cut all over the place all the time. You want to build that portfolio so that you can rely on that income and really not have to worry about tweaking and optimizing the way that I'm doing right now. Okay? All right, so let's move forward here. We've got IIPR, which is another REIT, marijuana REIT, 304 shares. I've got just over $60,000 worth. It kicks off just over $2,000 a year for me, and that one's increased about $7,000 over the last month. The next one is Microsoft. I have 185 shares. I continue to work hard to build that up. $57,000 worth. It has a low 0.8 yield. Kicks off about $450 a year for me, but it has increased in value over $6,000 this month. Then we go to Verizon. I have just under 1,000 shares, 957 shares, almost $50,000 worth. It's a 5% yield, and it kicks off $2,500, and that's increased a little bit over the course of the month. Bank of Nova Scotia, BNS, 617 shares, $43,000 worth, 4.38. That yield continues to go down as the price appreciation goes up. Kicks off $1,900, and on down just a little bit. Duke, 337 shares, $38,000 worth, 3.53 yield. It's off $1,342 a year for me, and that one has increased quite a bit this month, over the past month. Next we have Shaw SJR, over 1,000 shares, $33,000 worth, just over 3%, kicks off about $1,000. That's increased for the past month. Now J&J, I actually trimmed J&J. J&J is a fantastic company. It's a growth stock. Took like $3,000. So right now I have 179 shares, $32,000 worth. Has a yield of 2.39, and it kicks off about $765. BTI, this is one I've been building up. 734 shares now, $31,000 worth at an 8.7 yield. And it kicks off $2,734. So you can see Most of this increase is just me buying more shares of BTI. Then we have Ben, over 1,000 shares, $29,000 worth, 4%, kicking off $1,200, and it was down a little bit over the month. STWD, another REIT, commercial REIT, 1152, $28,000, 7.94 yield, and it kicks off just over $2,200 worth. And that was up a little bit. Avgo, one of my favorites, only 40 shares, but they each cost $626. So that's $25,000 worth, 2.6 yield, and that was up a little bit for the month. At Life, 324 shares, $22,881 worth, 2.73%, and At Life was up just a little bit. CFG, I trimmed a little bit, took a few $1,000s from here, some of the cream off the top. Still have 469 shares, $20,724 worth, 3.44, and it kicks off about $700. Moving on, I've got Southern Company, 260 shares at $19,000. That went up in value over the course of the month. Stag, 441 shares, $18,000 worth of value at a yield of 3.53. Apple, 97 shares at $17,000 worth, and that went up almost $1,900. Intel, 341 shares, $16,000 worth, 2.95. 3M, 101 shares, $15,000 at 4%. That one's been really down lately. PSA Public Storage, I've got 33 shares, $13,000 worth, and it's a 2% payout. Sunoco, 313 shares, and almost $13,000 worth. This one's got an 8% yield and kicking off $1,000. Pretty much flat. Then we have JHG, Janus Financial, 356 shares, representing $12,700, 4.34 yield. Now here's AQN, another one that I've been buying. It's a Canadian utility company. I now have 801 shares at $12,487 worth at a 4.4% yield. Most of this is the new stock that I bought, increasing the value. I had about $2,000 worth before, and now I have $12,000. Now let's finish out the ones above $10,000 in value, and then we'll go a lot quicker in the following ones. So next we have Good. I have 556 shares of Good at $12,438. 6.83 is the yield, and it kicks off $849. Went up about $1,000 over the course of the month. Nvidia, I have 43 shares for a total of $11,500. It has a very low yield because it's a growth stock at 0.06, and it went up about $2,000. Prudential, 91 shares, $10,851, a 4% yield, and that went up about $700. And finally, Pepsi, I have 61 shares at $10,000 at 2.57 yield, and that went up just a little bit. Now, the ones we just went over are my top 35, which actually represent 90% of all of my investments. So the rest is what I call the long tail, which I also talked about in my video, How Many Stocks Should You Own? And so let's take a look at some of the other ones I hold just at a glance. Okay, so we've got Lowe's, 46 shares of Lowe's, 212 shares of GSK, 50 shares of Texas Instruments. I did pair my Texas Instruments slightly, just taking a couple thousand from there. Let me tell you, it hurts my heart to do this, to tweak in some of the lower yields, because I love them all. I mean, there's a reason why I hold them in the first place. I've done a ton of research. I believe in the company long term. So, you know, it's like picking favorites amongst your kids. It's really, really hard to do sometimes. Qualcomm, 62 shares of Qualcomm. Oracle, 111 shares, WPC, 86 shares. We have ExxonMobil, 83 shares. Genuine Parts, 54 shares. PFXF, which is an ETF, and I actually covered in detail in my ETF video recently. 324 shares, representing about $6,000. We've got UPS, 28 shares at $5,884. Target, 25 shares, $5,000. T. Rowe Price, I shaved a little bit, 29 shares, $4,500. That one, I don't know how much lower it can possibly go. So really, you want to try to hang on to these shares if you can. Procter & Gamble, 28 shares. Canadian Imperial, 33 shares. This is my new one, MFC. So now I'm up to 4,000 shares of MFC. It's got a nice yield of 4.91. And you can see I did not own it last time we went through the portfolio. All right, moving on. Federal Realty, 31 shares. PFG, 50 shares. Getty, 108 shares. Wells Fargo, down a little bit, 61 shares. Abbott Labs, 23 shares. Tullis, 101 shares now. Bank of America, 63 shares. EBF, 133. Nextra Energy, 26 shares. Cisco, 38 shares. PBCT, 97 shares. And then we round it out with sort of everything under $2,000. So we've got VNQ, VTI, McKesson, General Mills, ORI, BMY, SPHD, VU, HIW, JP Morgan. This is another one I shaved down. FedEx, Toronto Dominion, TD, Discover Financial, Caterpillar, Morgan Stanley, Starbucks, VGT, Royal Bank of Canada, Zoetis, Lindy, Cardinal Health. And to round it out, we have Medtronic. They make pacemakers, SCHD, Illinois Toolworks, Micron Technology, Carrier, and Brandywine Realty. And so all of that adds up to 26,654 shares, $1,644,646, and a weighted yield of 4.29% and an annual income of $70,504 in dividend income. Now, last time when we reviewed the dividend portfolio, I had 25,567 shares, $1.5 million, $47,000, a weighted yield of 4.55, and an annual income of $70,366. So you can see how much tweaking I had to do and how much I had to give up in various places in order to offset the AT&T drop in yield and keep my annual dividend income over $70,000. Now, if you've been following me for a while, you know that I don't put too much stock in the total value of a portfolio because, quite frankly, that goes up and down every single day, every month. It's really the dividend income that I'm most concerned about. That is what's going to cover my bills. So, there you have it. Why do I take the time to even show you all of this? What's my motivation? I mean, I'm a millionaire, so shouldn't I be off boating on a lake somewhere? I started this channel because I wanted to democratize investing information that, quite frankly, some rich people share amongst themselves, but typically don't give out to just anybody. I want to give a peek under the tent on how the rich get richer. I want to inspire everyone, especially other women, to take control of their lives by learning about how to become financially independent. Did you know that the average female investor keeps 68% of her portfolio in cash? I mean, I live in a major metro US city, and a few months ago, I thought maybe I'd reach out to a Fidelity advisor to pick someone else's brain on some things. And do you know there was not one female advisor listed for the entire city? Guys, not one. Investing can be intimidating, So it would be important for a woman to connect with someone she knows she can trust with her hard-earned money. Now, I know most of you watching are men, and men have investing on lock. But maybe you could do someone a favor. Do you have a sister, a niece, a mom, an aunt, an employee, or some other female that you think would be enlightened and inspired by my story, like you are? Help me reach them. If my story and experience can materially change just one person's life in a meaningful way, well, that's why I'm not on a boat somewhere. I'm trying to pass it forward because no one around me taught me how. Because they didn't know, and it's taken a lifetime to figure it out. My message to you is, don't wait a lifetime to learn something you need to learn at the beginning of your life. And when you do learn something like that, give it away to somebody else. Okay, guys, I hope you enjoyed this portfolio update. And as always, I encourage you to keep learning, implementing, do your research, and then put it into practice. As a reminder, I'm not a financial advisor, so keep in mind these videos are for entertainment and inspiration only. I will see you on the flip side.